just about over 2 months till the NFL Draft 2025. And you know what it means. And if you don't, you should by now. It means we are going to enjoy one hell of a ride on our road to Super Bowl, going through every single team in the NFL by the order in which they will be drafting in this year's draft as it stands right now. So teams 1 to 32. We will take a look at how they did in last year. We will add a new layers. I will take a look at their draft hits, draft blunders, the cornerstone of their franchise, their flop of the year, the guy that might not do too well, their unsung hero, and also taking a look at the big picture, including finances, how the coach is on the hot seat, etc., etc. And then, with slightly new graphics, I will go in to show you how I imagine their lineup to look like in a way that will give you better, I would say, visualization of what it means. So with no further ado, let's start with the Tennessee Titans, shall we? So, the Titans and their draft. J.C. Latham, number 7 overall. I was not a huge fan of this pick, right? I do understand the need, but it felt like there were better prospects up here for tackle than J.C. Latham. And also, there was a gap between Joe Alt and the next bunch of guys. Or at least between Joe Alt and J.C. Latham. So, if Joe Alt was available, I would love that. But he wasn't. But let's face it, JC surprised me. I think he had quite a good rookie season for left tackle. I mean, there is not much to dislike about this. You would expect him perhaps to be better in terms of run blocking because he is one hell of a man. But I think he will figure it out. And as you can see, I've upped his grade from good backup to decent starter in the league. And as of right now, this pick feels okay. I'm not going to say it's a slam dunk because, yeah, he's far from that. But he looks okay. Devonta Sweat, on the other hand, I was a huge pick over the public for this pick. And boy oh boy, was I right, or at least it seems like for now, right? Devonta Sweat stepped in pretty much from day one, played nose tackle, played defensive tackle, and I would say this is one of the toughest positions to transition from the college to NFL because just the amount of body mass that you are facing here that you were not facing in college is just the difference is huge. And especially when you are playing nose tackle, you have to be able to hold two guys. Devonta did that. And next to Jeffrey Simmons, they might be one of the best hidden gems in the entire league because as of right now, the value of defensive tackles really is skyrocketing. A lot of teams are coming back to running the ball a lot between the tackles, so having spark plugs, just the big bodied guys that can make and stop the run, while also providing some pass rush, that can be huge. So, him next to Jeffrey Simmons, I'm going to enjoy these guys, I think. And if Devonta can stay out of parties, which maybe Nashville is not the easiest place on the earth to do, and he can teach some of the pass rush moves from Jeffrey Simmons, I think we're talking about future Pro Bowler. I think there is everything in his tool belt for him to make it happen. Jarvis Brownlee. I liked it, and I think so far so good. Especially with L'Jarius Sneed having, I would say, nightmarish type of season for the Titans. They thought they were signing shutdown corner for 300 snaps that he played. He was anything but that, and for the rest of the year he was injured. So they really needed someone to step up, and this first year corner, as a number of 146 in the draft, he played solid. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was not a lockdown corner by any stretch of imagination, but he definitely stepped up and caught my attention. He was good. Jalen Harrell, another guy that got some opportunities from 7th round. Obviously, when you are kind of going for number 1 pick, you will have more playing time, being able to give them to young players. And Jalen Harrell benefited from that, got some playing time, but frankly did not do much with that. So his future, we will see. Obviously, 7th round pick, you don't expect miracles here. And now for some guys, they did not necessarily get the playing time. Cedric Gray, Jaquan Jackson, and James Williams. Here I would say guys that did not play like 200 snaps at least, I consider they did not play enough snaps for me to just talk about them on individual basis in terms of their performance in this season. So, Jaquan Jackson, he played, 50, 70, something like that snaps, but he was under the threshold, so that's why he's not, in the in the slides above. So with these guys, I think the most worrying is Jaquan Jackson because, well, first of all, I really liked him. I thought he was a good pick and kind of a steal for the Titans. And he's already an older prospect. He's 24. And this was the time of year that if you are good, you should be able to show it. Because, well, okay, Will Levis and Mason Rudolph is throwing the ball, so it's not that easy. But he didn't even get on the field, right? And that's in a year where they traded DeAndre Hopkins and they were starving for any, wide receiver or even like anyone who could catch the ball out there. So the fact that he didn't make it on the field is worrying for him. And as well, the fact that he was a punt returner for them, but he was like bottom 3 in the league in most of the categories that are very important for punt returners. For example, how many yards you get per punt. For him, it was around 6. The average of the league is around 8 yards. So with Jaquan, I'm not so sure how his future is shaping up. Now, let's run down their roster's performance in last season. So we start with QBs because that's what we will do. And obviously, this is not a pretty conversation with the Titans because neither Will Levis and neither Mason Rudolph stepped up. It's somewhat expected for Mason Rudolph, like his career backup. I didn't thought he was anything more, last year when he went with Pittsburgh into the playoffs, but I would say he got carried that by other players on that roster rather than he was the reason they got into the playoffs late in the year. And, I just don't understand why they did start him in that playoff game, but that's neither nor here. He was just what he is. He's career backup, very nice career, like he's going to earn 4 or 5 millions. If, your one gets injured, he will step in. He's not going to suck, absolutely. He's a big guy. He can fight, as we've seen, Myles Garrett. What is it, like 4 or 5 years ago? Times fly by, right? But it's worrying for Will Levis, because this was the guy that, showed some really nice flashes late in the previous season. And with a new head coach, offensive-minded Callahan, the hope was, well, we will protect you better. That's why we drafted J.C. Latham. And, now we have this offensive guy that we trust could be the next hot thing. Let's go for it. And Will Levis, if anything, he made some steps back. Where to start? I mean, yeah, it's hard to even start because, do you start from negatives or do you start from positives? It's hard to start from positives. There wasn't money. But do you want to hear some excuses? Well, I will start with excuses. Okay. Will Levis started under or about 20 games in the league. That's really not a huge sample size. Let's face it, right? I know that's how the league works now, but maybe it will slow down a little bit when we see what Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, what these guys who, were labeled busts, guys that just, are not your number 1 QBs, they can do later in their careers. So maybe, listen to Tom Brady, listen to the guys. The QB is such a tough position that you need time to develop. Of course, when there is Jaden Daniels and CJ Stroud, that they will enter the league and take it by the storm, people are not patient. Fans are not patient, owners are not patient, and obviously head coaches and GMs, they are going for their positions. So will Levis get another chance? I'm not sure, but let's face it, 20 games, and throughout those 20 games, he shifted head coaches, he shifted offensive coordinates or head coaches at the same time. He was protected by one of the worst lines in football. He was definitely not protected by one of the worst, almost like players that played majority of the snaps this year. As right tackle Sebastian Joseph Day, this guy is not a starter in the league, and that it was hard. He had close to zero help because neither one of his receivers or tight ends really stepped up this year. If anything, they stayed the same or went down. They've traded him DeAndre Hopkins after a couple of games. He played through injuries. So I get it. I've lowered him, but did he really get a fair chance to succeed in NFL? To me, no. So, okay. Now to the bad things. Some of the games were ugly. He looked lost. Sometimes it felt like he just, not that he gave up, but he didn't trust himself, which is something that obviously you need. And also, last year, he had more big time throws than he had, in a couple of games than he had throughout this whole year. So while you could accept that he will make mistakes because he's a young player, he's a gunslinger, you need to balance that out and eventually, making the balance go in your favor with exciting plays, with big plays. And, in time, the scales were this, but now they are here, and you were really hoping for this. So we are really far from optimal and even far from balance with Phil Levis. And even the fact that, Mason Rudolph was able to bench him for some of the games, though the injuries played a part in that, that's also worrying, that the Titans are a guy, we have a guy that we know what he is, we know what Mason Rudolph is, but we think we have better chance to win games with him than with you. That's not a good look. So, Will Levis, we will have a bigger discussion about him later in this video, but 2024 was definitely not his year. What was positive about this team's offense was these two running backs. Tony Pollard signed from the Cowboys, and originally I was not a huge fan of this signing. Why? Well, it was quite expensive for what I thought Tony Pollard is. 3 years, 22 millions for a guy that got his chance with Dallas Cowboys and really didn't do much with it. So I was like, yeah, okay. Okay, he's not a bad player, but this feels like an overpay. And also, when Derrick Henry decided to leave the Titans and go to Baltimore, and unfortunately did not win his ring, I was hoping for Tyjae Spears to have his breakout year and to be the guy that they will kind of hand the reins. But then I learned more about the situation with Tyjae. It seems like there is a stop sign in terms of his career. His body will most likely give up after 2,000 or 3,000 snaps in NFL. There is something, I think it was his knees, that it's just, they cannot hold on for a long time. So it could be for the Titans to, ride him during his rookie contract and then for him to just pretty much retire because of injuries. Or something that happened for him is like, okay, let's give him 300, 400 snaps. And by the time his rookie contract ends, he will still be a serviceable guy, perhaps for us, for someone else. So even for Tajay, this is a good situation. And as well, like, we can look at it like from moral standpoint or whatever, but it really seems like that's the right combination for this team, because Tony Pollard come in, stepped, was the primary running back of this team. It's not like his hands are bad. They are not just as good as what Tajay has. But he proved to have more contact balance, more that grit that I pretty much ever saw him play with the Dallas. He was really breaking tackles. And, when you see and when you take a look at 4.2 yards a carry, it doesn't look like much, right? But you have to remember, this is Titans O-line. This is Will Levis and Mason Rudolph at QB. So, a lot of teams can kind of sell out and just defend the run. And also, this is the exact same number that Derrick Henry had last year with the Titans. And there is one more important number, and it's yards after contact. So essentially, something you get unblocked, but a lot of the yards you need to fight for. And Tony Pollard had 3.6 yards after contact, which is, again, the same number as Derrick Henry had last year with the Titans. So that's very good. As of right now, is this something like special unit? No, but they were definitely serviceable, and pretty much kind of the only reason you wanted to see their offense, especially late in the year, which is kind of worrying because it's not like they were exceptional. Let's take a look at this wide receiver room. So Calvin Ridley, after D-Hop left, he was forced to be their primary wide receiver. And let's just face it, Calvin Ridley is not that. He is very good number 2, but he needs a guy that will, take up on Pat Surtains, Sauce Gardners, and these guys, so he can go against number 2 corners. That's his game. He's not more. He is not an alpha. He is a good player, even important one in my rankings, but he is a number 2. He should not be your primary weapon. Again, he had nice enough year. There's nothing too bad to say about him. Unless you want to mention that they are paying him 4 years, 92 million, so around 24, 23 million a year. For that, I would expect better player than Calvin Ridley, let's face it. But it's not like it's an outrageous deal. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine and Tyler Boyd. So for veteran Tyler Boyd, I like the signing as number 3, number 4 wide receiver. What he was supposed to be in this offense, behind Hopkins, behind Ridley. That was the role for him, as he was forced to be more than that. I think he just showed that he isn't. He is a good number 3, number 4 veteran option out there that will give you exactly that. And that's pretty much it. With Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, it wasn't a breakout year. Let's not call it this way, like that, because, well, it wasn't. But at least in his contract year, he played well. 9 touchdowns is pretty nice, only on 32 receptions. But overall, you could have felt him. You could have felt his presence. They were able to get some good plays for him, and we'll see if he will be back with the Titans next year or if somebody else takes a punt on him. But there is some potential still in him. Do I trust that he, fulfills it to, let's say, to the maximum or whatever? Yeah, no, I don't. But at the same time, would I be happy to have Nick Westbrook-Ikhine as my number, 4, 3? Yeah, as my number 4, I would. As number 3, I would not. Let me check on something. Yeah. So he's 28. His market value is projected to be around 4 millions. He carved himself out. Nice career. I think he's going to get some decent contract. I would say something around 2 years, 7 to 8 millions. For undrafted guy, kudos to you, Nick. But let's move to other guys that they hoped they would step up, and obviously we are talking about Treylon Burks. Is there a point of putting even more salt in the wound of this this whole mess, in which they choose to trade AJ Brown for a pick and use that pick to select Treylon Burks? While AJ Brown is now celebrating his Super Bowl ring, Treylon Burks is a bust. 4 receptions, man, four receptions. Like there was some crazy stat. I think it was AJ Brown has like more touchdowns in postseason that Treylon Burks has in his entire career, or something like that. That was something really crazy. Or it was even like starts in postseason. Yeah, I mean, let's face it, Treylon Burks is just a bust. And whatever you get out of him in his 4th year, it's like absolute house money, but you are not counting on it. Like, if it was supposed to happen, it should have happened by now. And I just don't know how he can make it anymore. Now, let's talk about tight ends, Chig Okonkwo and Josh Weil. Good and bad. Josh Weil, nice season. Really showed up that he is capable, hopefully number 3, but at worst case scenarios, you will live with him as your number 2 tight end. There were some flashes. His blocking is alright. He showed solid hands, and he was good enough to earn some snaps in NFL. What's worrying is Chig Okonkwo, because you hoped for this guy to step up. This was his 3rd year, and 2023, he looked promising. Not so much this year. I mean, just like with pretty much everyone else with this offense, there was not much production, there was not much separation, there was not much of nothing. So Chick is also entering his final year of the contract, and at this point, from what you hoped would be your future tight end, is a guy that's fighting for a new contract. Whether it's here, like he will get some type of contract, but for a good payday, he will have to have really, really good season. Now let's talk about the offensive line. Where do we start? Okay, let's start from left to right. Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, and J.C. Latham. So J.C. Latham played left tackle. We already talked about him. I think there is not much else to say. Let's hope that Mr. Callahan, aka Brian Callahan's father, will continue to work his magic on this offensive line. Though I was underwhelmed, let's face it. I was underwhelmed with how this line produced. It might be they are just really desperate, or maybe, some of the magic dust was it just needs more time to earn and ripe rewards. Peter Skoronski moving to guard, I think in his 2nd year showed another development, but was it good enough? Like, it was decent in my opinion, but again, it was a bit underwhelming for what I would expect magic to happen here. You can argue, like, when you have really bad quarterback play, you have bad overall play on this offense. Peter is probably like their 2nd best offensive player, which is ridiculous. It's hard to stood out, and that's fair. That's absolutely fair. But still, I think there is more in him than he showed, and I was hoping for more. One of the problems might be that next to him was a big free agent signing in Lloyd Cushenberry. They gave him hefty contract, something around 3 years, 40 million. No, 4 years, 50 million. And they were hoping that they are signing maybe not a Pro Bowl level of center, but perhaps yes, because like pretty much every year in Denver, he showed more and more and more. Here, that was not good. Like, I don't know whether it's like you are just. I mean, like I wanted to say, you are used to better coaching, which would be probably true with Sean Payton, or better quarterback play, which is kind of questionable. But yeah, Russell Wilson is obviously better than these two guys. But overall, I think it might be more of a case that he was used to having guys like Quinn Miners, and overall the O-line in Denver is really good. That might have made him look better than he actually is. So, like, kind of in the secrets or in the shadows, this actually needs to work in second year, because this is not a cheap contract and Lloyd definitely didn't live up to it. Rest of the O-line, Nicolas Petit-Frere. I mean, this guy playing 621 snaps. Yeah, like I feel sorry for the guys. He's just not good enough. He's just not. And I wish him the best. But one of unfortunately another like mishaps. It's not like he was drafted in the first round. He was a 69th pick of the draft 3 years ago. But still, for that he definitely did not live up to his draft pedigree. Next to him, it was Delnar Jones and Daniel Brunskill. They were moving, sometimes playing guard, sometimes playing center. I think they were decent enough, but that's just it. They are not superstars, not by any stretch of imagination. Good veterans presence that, if one of them is your worst player on the offensive line, you can definitely live with that. You ideally want them as really almost like premium backups. But you don't want them to be, pretty much the standard of your offensive line, which Titans, Latham, Skoransky, Cushenberry, Raduns, Brunskill, Petit-Frere. It really feels like the standard is Brunskill, Raduns, like decent starters, and that's just not going to cut it. That was overall your offense. It was one of the most unwatchable units in the league. It was a unit that had some hopes before the season. With DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, you were hoping for Chico Kongfo to make another step. So they would have 3 really nice, let's say, pass catchers. You could hope Trajan Burks may do something. You definitely hope that this offensive line would look much better with Mr. Callahan, and with huge investment in terms of JC Latham. But overall, and obviously, a huge step up was expected from Will Levis, and if anything, it was a downgrade. The same with like offensive coaching, because let's face it, I did not see that much offensive guru-ness from Brian Callahan this year. So yeah, that was ugly. That was definitely ugly. Now let's shift to defensive line, and we start with what I think is the biggest strength of this team. It's this interior. Mainly and mostly Jeffrey Simmons. I think he's the best player on this team. One of the most underappreciated and talked about insane players in the league. He is really up there with best of the best in terms of his pass rushing abilities as an interior defensive player. He had 10% pass rush win rate, which is almost as good as Dexter Lawrence 10.8. The only guy that was really high above that is Chris Jones, but it also has something to do with Chris Jones not always playing interior. He goes on the edge, and it's like easier to win your snap out there, especially when Specs pretty much tries to handpick those matchups for Chris Jones to exploit as much as he can. With Jeffrey Simmons, he doesn't have that luxury. Not only he doesn't have as good of defensive coaching as not many people do have. What Kansas City have? Kansas City? I said that right? I said Kansas City. I'm sorry. That was interesting. I wonder what Freud would say about that one. Back to the topic. So Jeffrey Simmons, absolutely insane monster. I just hope he gets his credit. In his 28 years, he is just about, on the top of his game. And next to him, we have Devondre Sweat, who is, let's say, more of a beef presence next to him. And these two guys together, yeah, I mean, like I was not watching this team for offense, but I was watching these two guys. And the amount of times you see them just, manhandle the offensive lineman, just get out of my way, or just, handling double teams and just like, yeah, I'm not moving, so if you want to run, you ain't running through here, or I just stop you. It was fun. And if Devondre makes another step forward, this might be the best defensive tackle duo in the league in his year 2. That's something that you should be very excited about. Sebastian Joseph Day as complementary piece, veteran presence. You absolutely love him. This was really good year from him. They don't have him signed for next season, but I would not be surprised if they brought him back. It was not as nice when you look slightly outside of the box on the edges. Harold Landry and Arden Key. Well, I'm not saying they are bad players, but especially for Harold Landry, for a guy that gets 24 millions a year, his pass rush was just kind of non-existent. So for a guy that's like really good edge presence, helping to stop the run, for 10 millions, okay, but for 24, that got pricey very, very quickly. And Aaron Key, again, solid player, good players. Like, I'm not saying these guys are bad. They're kind of average. If they are your number 2, you live with that. If they are your number 3, you are probably like Pittsburgh Steelers or someone really crazy. But they are not special. They are not game wreckers. They will give you what they will give you, but they will not, most of the games, they will not be a reason you held your opponent to 1 touchdown less, if you understand me. So, with both of these guys, it's underwhelming. For Adam Key, you can justify that because you are paying him under 10 million. With Harold Landry, that you've signed for a huge contract, it is getting hard to swallow this production, especially in terms of his pass rush. I mean, don't get yourself swindled by the 9 sacks, because not every sack is created equally. Sometimes you are just standing in the right position, and some of the guys, Sam Howell was not this year, but the year before, obviously, was really good at this. He just runs kind of into your lap, so get sacked for almost nothing. Jalen Harrell, we talked about him, got some of these chances and just didn't get them anything. And that's kind of a problem because they don't really have many options on the edge. In terms of linebackers, where to start? So Jack Gibbons, I like this guy. Really gritty, undrafted player that just every time he plays, there is a saying that you play with your hair on fire, and that I think that's what Jack Gibbons is. He just plays like every snap is kind of his last, and you have to admire that. Like, he knows that this opportunity may not last. He needs to earn it. He doesn't have great draft pedigree, and he looks apart. So they can bring him back on a very cheap contract because he is their restricted free agent, and I would be surprised if we don't see him back. They obviously went for what was the guy? Jones. Ernest Jones, yeah. I mean, I'm a Seahawks fan, and I like this guy. So they had Ernest Jones, whom they traded for before the season, which looked like a great move. I really thought that Ernest Jones is a really good linebacker. They brought him for a cheap deal with the Rams, just to trade him middle of the season to the Seahawks and acquire Jerome Baker. I'm like, weird. John Baker didn't look special. Didn't look like he has, I don't know, like much to show for. He's just, a guy that gives you something, but what's he good at? What's he really good at? So he's a presence on the field. He is not a liability, but he is definitely not anyone that's uplifts you. Unlike Kenneth Murray. This guy just gets chance after chance because he was a 23rd overall pick in 2020 draft. Because of that, because of his athletic traits, the teams will take chances on him. But he's just not a good football player, man. Like, he just doesn't get it. And he doesn't even play with enthusiasm, I would say. Like, run defense, great, 35.0. It's like you kind of don't give a shit. And especially when you at least have athletic traits, use them. Man, he just, I don't know, he just doesn't get it. He just doesn't get this position. It's a hard position. So I do understand why teams still take chances on him, because in case he would figure it out, there is tools. But, how long will you keep hoping? For example, the crazy thing is, Jake Gibbons, his contract is going to be worth around $1 million, and his total earnings so far is around $2 million, obviously on his rookie deal. Kenneth Murray last year just signed 2 years, $15.5 million, despite showing much less of a good football than Jake Gibbons. Obviously, you cannot compare regular signings to draft signings or undrafted signings, but if those guys were about to hit open market before last season, Kenneth Murray would got his 15 millions, and I think Jake Gibbons would got like 2 years, 6 millions. So that's kind of saying how the league views these athletic types. Like, okay, hopefully they will figure it out. And more likely than not, they don't. So we will see what the future holds for Kenneth Murray. Let's go down to the secondary. Their safety duo, Amani Hooker and Quandre Diggs, was, I cannot say like pleasant to watch, but it was okay. If you want me to compare them, they're probably like slightly above average, because safeties are not necessarily the most valued position right now in the NFL. And these two guys definitely put up some performance. Quandre Diggs, from his times at Seattle, I really, really like this guy. He's just a hard hitter, kind of no nonsense, no bullshit. I loved his tweet. I think it was like later in free agency when he was still unsigned. It was like, I will probably change my occupation to corner because they are getting paid while we are getting nothing, which kind of is true. League will figure it out eventually, perhaps the same way they did with running backs. It just comes in some sort of waves. Who do you value at certain times? For example, right now, like a couple of years back, there was like, we need to protect our guy, we need to get a left tackle. Now, obviously, that's still the case, but you have like 20 really good to great left tackles in the league. So, unlike with, I would say, 50 premium pass rushers, because obviously you need 2, you don't have that. So, the demand and, how do you say it? Well, you know what I mean, guys, right? Like, I'm sorry, English is not my first language. So supply. So supply is almost as high as demand, or even higher for the left tackles, unlike for safeties where demand is not much and supply is kind of big. But nobody kind of wants them. Another guy who kind of took his chance in this hell of a year for the Titans was Mikey Brown. Another player that they let me check. What? What am I doing? Yeah, another guy just like Chickimans that you can bring for free back. He's the same age almost, just a couple months younger. Both came undrafted in 2022 draft, and both are just playing hard, good football. I'm not saying he's some kind of a special player. I'm not saying that even about Chickimans. Don't get me wrong. But first of all, they are absolute no-brainers to bring on like 1 million type of deals. And second of all, I would just much rather see these guys as kind of borderline roster talent, which means, to me at least, if you will put him in, you know he will give you 120% of his effort. He might not have the tools, he might not have the athletics, but he will give you the effort. Which, first of all, it's easy to spread around across the whole team. And second of all, you know he will just try to do his best to improve. Unlike with other guys that just have the tools, that they have the athleticism, they were perhaps more nurtured in terms of they didn't need to do as much as the other guys because of the natural talent. So of course, like in the end of the day, you want the match of this. I'm not saying that Mike Brown has a bright future and he's going to be prime safety, or Jay Gibbons. Of course, like still, if you ask me who has a better chance to be an elite linebacker, Kenneth Murray has a better chance. Don't get me wrong. But in terms of on average, what this guy will give me, I will take Chick Gibbons any day of the week. And Mike Brown, I will not be shocked if whether it's with Will Levis or Cam Ward or someone else behind the center, they will be like, we need to figure out the offense with offensive head coach. If Mike Brown is their starting safety next year. Now cornerbacks. We already talked a little bit about L'Jarius Sneed. Let's talk about him more. What was that, man? Like, he just looked lost. Okay, he is out there facing the number one corners. They are really good, of course. But that's why they are paying you big money. That's why they traded for you. Was it a sense or situation that he was not comfortable with a new system, new town, new team? Was it about him playing slightly injured before he went out for the season? Let's hope. Let's freaking hope, because if not, this is a huge problem, because his contract is around 22-23 millions a year, and not so. It's 19. It's just cap hits for next season, because his cap hit for previous year was very small. So pretty much for the rest of this contract, his cap hits are around 20-23 millions. I mean, I'm not giving up on him. I still have him ranked as an important starter, so I do expect him to be the number one corner for this team. But he's definitely one I will be watching very closely, and after 3-4 weeks, we will revisit this grade because he needs to show better. You just cannot be a liability, man. You can be average, that sometimes happened. Even Sauce Gardner had down year. I wouldn't call him average, of course, but he didn't look as good. But you cannot have this. Kind of fortunately, Chidobe Awuzie was playing good. Is it actually a blessing? Because they're kind of paying him off some of his better years, in which he looked like really good number 2 corner. Now he just looks like average one. And does that justify 12 millions a year? You be the judge. I think it's close. Next to them, fortunately, someone they hit on in the draft, Overall, like their 2022 draft, especially with undrafted guys, but also with Roger, here was kind of a hit. He was 35 pick overall, and he improves year after year. I'm not saying he's like the biggest star or anything, but the dude can play. The dude can really play. He's tough as nails. He will hit you. He likes that. And he's one of the brighter spots on this roster, which again says a lot because I don't have him ranked as anything special, right? Overall, that was your Tennessee Titans in 2024. I've decided not to dive into punters and kickers. I'm just not good at it. So it's pretty much for me, just look at PFF grades and decide, or like look at, their hits percentage. Sometimes I will mention the kickers and punters when I feel like it's necessary, especially like with Dallas, because for me, they are all about wasting prime of their kicker, which is kind of sad. But other than that, I will not go deep into this. Yeah. They also have some depth in terms of corners that I forgot to mention. Darrell Baker and Jarvis Brumley both played reasonably well, were able to like step and actually outplay L'Jarius Sneed. We're talking about Brumley with the draft, and whether it's Sneed or Awuzie, we will see how many of these veterans are on the roster. Not for next year, because first, they are still probably the better what you have. Second, they are very expensive to cut. But for the 2026 season. Overall, for the Titans, this was hellish season. We will again get back to it with a review of Brian Callahan. And the bad thing is, I'm just not really feeling like too many guys stepped up, which you would hope, because there were possibilities and there were hopes. Now let's talk about new segment of this, and it's a segment in which we talk about draft hits, draft blunders, cornerstones of this franchise, unsung heroes, and flops. First of all, I want to reappreciate the draft hit that Devondre Sweat was. Like, I'm out of words. I'm really glad that I was so high on this pick, because I really thought like this is the position, especially with the strengths in terms of getting back to running the ball more, overpaying in sometimes guards in the league. Like, what does it? Let's face it. What does it mean when guys are, well, let's sign like the really top teams and top managers, like, yeah, let's get these running backs because I feel like they are cheaper than they should be, and also let's pay our guards really a lot of money. What might they think about doing? Running the ball, right? So wouldn't it be nice to have a guy that says no to that? And Titans might have found it in Devondre Sweat. In terms of their draft blunder, I will revisit Jaquan Jackson, and my notes on him is, I liked him. I thought he was more 4th round wide receiver rather than 6th. This was a year to grab your chance by the horns and take it. He didn't almost play as a regular wide receiver, and his punt returns were abysmal. In terms of MVP for this season, but also a cornerstone that this franchise can be built upon, I will go with Jeffrey Simmons. We already talked about this guy, but I just really wanted to give you guys like kind of my rundown of how my awards for this team would be like. And I wanted to be more positive with the awards, so there will be 3 awards that are positive and just 2 that are negative. It was kind of sometimes hard, especially with teams like Titans, because there were a lot of people that could have challenged for some of the owners, especially on the negative spectrum. But here I have no doubt in mind that Jeffrey Simmons is a guy that should be praised with this reward for me. So Jeffrey, congratulations. Now let's go for an unsung hero of this team. So a guy that perhaps doesn't get the most credit, while not necessarily being the best on this team. To me, that was absolutely Tony Pollard. Like I said already, he was one of the few reasons why you wanted to watch this offense and not wanting to scratch your eyes off, because that offense, especially late in the year, 2 games against Jacksonville, losing to Mac Jones, led Jacksonville Jaguars, that was bad. So, Tony, thank you, thank you, and here are your praises. Now, for the flop of the year, it's L'Jarius Sneed. Like I said, he was a liability. You cannot be a liability. Like, this really reminds me of like J.C. Jackson for the Chargers. You signed a guy that was Pro Bowler, that was almost like in some times of DPOI conversations. You sign him away from his environment, and he looks like trash. That's what L'Jarius was. But again, it was just 300 snaps, new environment. I do think he will turn it around. I hope he will, for the sake of Titans and for the sake of L'Jarius. But unfortunately, this negative reward goes to him. Now, let's look in the bigger picture for this whole franchise. So, what does these things mean? HC, head coach, it's Brian Callahan. C is my grade for a coach. It's not like C is an average grade. Here, like the same like with drafts, I do like to really like put up the scales or put the mean more towards left, more towards positive, because I like to talk about people in more positive way. So it's most likely like a B is an average grade. So Brian Callahan is a C. Yeah, he really didn't do good enough job, in my opinion, to improve this offense. Like, if anything, the offense looked worse. Overall, this team, I wouldn't say they played without fire, but especially late in the year, they just looked out of sync. It really didn't feel like there is anything going in terms of positive energy. And I didn't see him like scheming up good plays that Will Levis would just miss. It was not really schemed up super well. So his first year, I had higher hopes from him. I think I rated him B- last year, so it's downgraded to C. And we will see what the future holds for him. Now towards categories. So 24, this is how the season should be perceived overall. D might seem like it's way too good, but when I talk about like this category, to me it's about how did you handle the draft, how did you look on the pitch, what went wrong, what went right in terms of development of the players, and like overall how much did you get out of this season. And the only saving grace is they had quite solid draft and they got number 1 pick. That really like really from E to E plus, that makes it D, because number 1 pick is freaking valuable. So when you are sucking, at least suck to the point that you really get the top pick. And also they didn't really feel like 3-14 team, more like 5-12, which doesn't give you too much of a credit, but it's like much better this way when you look like 5-win team and you end up with 3 wins and you get the number 1 pick than the other way around. QB situation, it gets 2 minuses. The scale works from 3 pluses to 3 minuses. You might ask, why not 3 minuses? It's easy. They are not paying for their QB. So here I do not just rank how the QBs are stacked up, because obviously if they will go with Levis or even if they pick up Cam Ward, I would say my ranking for them at types of QBs won't be better than 26th and lower for Will Levis is probably going to be 30 or 31 in terms of starting QBs. So that's not just it. You have that with the grades of the players with previous cards. Here is also about the fact how much are you paying for the guy. So, for example, Derek Carr, a guy that's definitely better than Will Levis, but you are paying 40, 50 millions for him. So what's a better QB situation for your franchise in terms of how much production you are getting, pay your buck. Also, the saving grace here is they could have Cam Ward, but it would, I'm not sure, like it's more like -2.5. With Cam Ward, it would be -1.5, so I've settled -2. HSE, aka hot seat. Here is a scale from 1 to 10, and I think Brian Callahan is actually quietly on the hot seat. I think that might be a reason why they will draft Cam Ward. That is like, well, I've been here 1 year, my QB sucks, let's reset my window a bit, let's draft a rookie, and let's develop him. I think that would downgrade this to 5, but I'm not sure they would draft Cam Ward, to be told. And overall, like, my thing is, even if you go with Cam Ward and you will end up with another like 4 or 5 win season, I think he's gone. I think he's gone if they go for 5 wins with Levis. So yeah, like if there's some of the coaches, I don't think they should sit very comfortably. I think Brian Callahan is one of them. Finances, the same grades, -3 minuses to 3 pluses. Here, I take a look at how much free money they have, how much good players they have on rookie contracts, and how much also they have committed down the line, like some of the Warriors and stuff, and how are their like real contracts in terms of value. What really drags Tennessee down is out of their 6th highest paid players, I would say only one of them, Jeffrey Simmons, is worth what they are paying him for. The other 5, Harold Landry, Calvin Ridley, Lloyd Cushenberry, L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, for what they showed here, they are not worth what they are paying them. But they have around 50 millions in terms of free cap space, that's good. They also have some good players on contracts, especially from this draft, like Tevon Dostav, J.C. Layton, Peter Skoronski, Roger McKivy, Jack Gibbons probably back, etc., etc. It's not like huge plethora, but it's good. And also they are not like in future debts. They don't have money pushed down the line. So that's why this is only 1 minus. STR, what's the strength of this team? I truly believe it's defensive line, especially interior of this defensive line. I love the duo of Simmons and Sweat. Let's make it simple. Division, the same scale as QB and finances. This will always be from the perspective of the team. So obviously, when you talk about Kansas, Las Vegas, Denver, and Chargers, the division will look quite differently from the point of view that Las Vegas has or Kansas has. Okay, so this is always from the perspective of Tennessee Titans. And yeah, despite them being the worst team in this division as it stands right now, this still is quite a favorable type of deal for them. There is no juggernaut, like Houston is not there. The second season unfortunately showed there is still a lot of holes in their boat. And Colts are kind of meh, whilst Jaguars have number 5 pick, fired another head coach, fired finally Trent Baalke, so they might be on the horizons, obviously. So that kind of shifts it more towards just 1+, but it's still one of the easier division in football, even from the perspective of Tennessee Titans. So that was 2024 for you. Now let's take a look how the roster could stack up for 2025. We will start with offensive line and QB. So as you can see here, let's make it easy. When the card has a face that you can recognize and when it has a name, these are the starters I believe will be on the roster and will start the games unless they are injured. And then there are positions that they need to fill. This will be my guesses before free agency, before draft. I will, as free agency will start, I will accompany that into like future teams. But obviously for teams like Titans, the free agency hasn't started, so it will not be here. I think you are set on left side of this offensive line. Both JC Latham and Peter Skoronski showed good enough play that you are hoping that they will be really strength of this team. Lloyd Cushenberry, not so much, but you are tight with him. Like there is kind of no way, Jose, as they say, for you to cut him because the dead cap is just too much for you to stomach. As of right now, it would be almost 20 millions, or you can stomach around 40 that he has left. I would say clearly he's going to play. They will hope to get better production of him. If not, they can get rid of him next year when the dead cap will be only 9 millions rather than have 28 millions spread over next 2 years. So I think these three guys are starting. For Lloyd, it's mostly because of his contract. For these two guys, it's because of their talent and hope that they will improve. And obviously, like, Lloyd deserved to start. He had bad last year. On the right side, I think you need to improve. I would not mind to bring back a guy like Daniel Brunskill or even like Dylan Raduns to just give them a veteran presence, but they cannot be a trendsetter. They have to be, there. So, if one of them plays right guard and the other is like a backup, all right, but then you need to bring really quality right tackle. You just cannot stomach another year of this side we ignore. So I don't mind bringing back like cheap veteran option to play right guard, but that means either through the draft or through free agency you need to really tackle that spot and make let's say Daniel Brunskill really the worst part of your offensive line. Then it can work. In terms of QB, Will Levis or Cam Ward. I don't really see them drafting Shedeur Sanders, at least not with number 1 pick. And is it time to have the discussion? It is. Let's go or not? No, we will do it after the whole rundown. So this is how I will believe they will stack up, or this is more how I would do it, as well as what I think has a good chance. With most of the teams, I will try to give this balance to try to follow them, but give it my oomphs. For some of them, how I would do it, and I don't think they will, but I will let you know it's not the case for the Titans, because I think this is pretty much what they will do. In terms of weaponry, I think they will. So on the right side, you will see a trio of wide receivers. On the left side, we'll start with tight end, then running back, and then on left corner, bottom, there will be a guy that it's either fourth wide receiver, second tight end, or second running back, whoever I think is the most valuable guy for this team as that like backup option, to put it that way. So I think they will bring Nick Westbrook-Ikhine back. I think it makes sense for him as well as for them. He should be reasonably cheap. He had a good year. He knows it there. And some type of 1 year, 4.5 million types of money makes sense for both of them. He will secure some of the money for his future, and they will get decent enough number 3, number 4 option. I think as things stand right now, Chike Okonkwo's job is definitely on the line, but they have a lot of holes on this team that quitting on a guy that still has a lot of potential probably is not in their best interest. So I do expect them to give this opportunity to Chick. I'm not saying they will not draft a tight end, but I will be surprised if they went and signed heavy priced tight end. I don't think that's in their best interest. I think they have much bigger holes that they need to sign or try to sign premier players for. So that's why I expect Chick to, at least from the start of the season, have this chance, have this opportunity to still be the tight end number one, or split this role with some veteran type of a player. But for now, I would put him in this spot. In terms of running backs, I think you are absolutely set. Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears. It's not something special, but it's really good for where you are and you don't have money, or you have some money, but again, you have much bigger problems that are your running backs. I would not mind, or at least I would definitely go for late round running back for this year's draft, because this is a really deep class of running backs. They have extra fourth and fifth round pick. They don't have their own third, because that's what they traded for L'Jarius Sneed. Yeah, sucks now, especially when it's the highest possible for the round pick. But yeah, I don't think they will touch this room beside drafting some late round guy. Which room I think they will definitely try to sign, hopefully top player, but I don't think that too many top players will necessarily want to come here. It's wide receivers. I would love for them to be able to secure wide receiver number one, someone better than Calvin Ridley. I don't really think that's going to happen. They would have to massively overpay, which is not in their best interest, in my opinion, as well as they would need to find a guy that's okay with not being great for next 2 years, because I really don't think the Titans will be something special next season, just in order to secure 3-4 millions more on his top deal. So for example, T. Higgins, I don't really see why he would want it to go to the Titans. So I'm expecting someone that's better than Westbrook-Ikhine, but not as good as Calvin Ridley. And it might be someone they will bring through the draft, but not with number one pick. We'll talk about those possibilities later. Here we will take a look at the backups they have. So left top corner, it's two guys for offensive line. Right top corner, it's a backup tight end, backup wide receiver. On the bottom of your screen, it's backup QB and backup running back. Here I gave Will Levis kind of backup QB type of a deal. It's more I wanted to put him in because he's definitely going to be on the roster, and I think it's very possible that he will actually have the reins as a QB. So I just wanted to have him here, and it was probably 51-49. It's not going to be him behind the center starting next year. So that's why I put him here. Now, I like Nicolas Petit-Frere. As much as I think he is not worth starting, he's still on his rookie deal. There's still some hope for him to find his footing. He has at least a lot of snaps in NFL, so as a backup, you are still not happy with it, but you will take it for the money. And with Daniel Brunskill, he would be definitely a guy I'm trying to bring him back on cheap veteran type of deal. In terms of tight end, Josh Weil, I think he's definitely up to the level of number 2 tight end on a bad team, which Titans are. And Traylon Burks, he's not worth number 4, being a number 4, but they don't really have too many better players, or really pretty much anyone. And there is still some hope. We talk about this with Kenneth Murray. The same applies to Traylon Burks. There's still the draft pedigree that will probably hold him and give him some chances. So that's why he's here. So that's the offense. It's not very nice outlook, and 50 millions looks very well, but you have to remember that about 12 to 15 millions you will spend on draft picks. So that leaves you with around 45. You have to re-sign some of the guys, some of the veterans. So that will leave you with 20 millions to really go and get one top player or two or three, let's say mediocre or average guys, depends on the position. Obviously you are not getting average QB for 7 or 8 millions a year. So for them, while 50 million might look really good, it's not that much. Now let's take a look at the defense. Here I put the whole defensive line here, though if it was up to me, I would not bring Harold Landry back. It's not like you can go without the penalty, because if you cut Harold Landry, you will have dead cap of 13.1 million for this season, so you will only save 11 millions that you can use towards signing another players, but it also means you clear out 24 millions for next season. To me, given his production, I would do that. I think it's almost kind of no-brainer, but why he's still here, why I put him here is, well, they might look at this like, well, we don't really want to touch our defense, especially our defensive line was kind of like something we were happy with, so let's not disrupt the flow here and, just continue with these guys. I would not do it, so I would not be surprised if they bring him back, so that's why he's here. It's going to be a case for most of the guys that are still under contract. Unless I feel like they're absolutely clear cuts, they will still be here. But to me, my defensive line would look without Harold Landry. In terms of linebackers, I think there are very easy decisions. You will resign Jack Gibbons for 1 year, 1 million. That's what exclusive restricted free agents allows you to do. And for a second linebacker, I'm not sure. I would probably bring some of the veteran guys, 3-4 millions, someone next to Jack Gibbons that will give you some basic level of play, not really trying to hit for a big one like with Kenneth Murray, and just give us steady room that's going to be bad but not a huge liability. And while doing so, I would definitely cut Kenneth Murray, because with him he has cap hit of 9.9 million, but I can get rid of the contract and save 7.4. So here you don't see Kenneth Murray, just because I really think it's really no-brainer to cut him off, so to cut him from the roster. In terms of the secondary, there's again not that many questions. I think you are stuck, or you are there with two veterans in L'Jarius Sneed and Chidobe Awuzie. You hope they will show more, especially in terms of Sneed. Roger McCreary, you are absolutely happy. We will see if they will pay him or if he will play his last year of rookie deal and not sit out. If I were Titans, I would pay him something along the lines. I would try to make it 3 years, something, hopefully around 30 millions a year. Not 30 a year, 3 years, 30 millions. It sounds fair to me for both sides. And I would probably do it before the season started, because I do expect him to put up another good year. In terms of their fourth guy behind, it's Jarvis Bromley. He definitely showed up last year that he can handle even the role of the starter, so you are absolutely happy to have him. Amani Hooker, long-term starting safety here. Again, nothing special, but still only 27. He plays good enough, and you could technically get out of this contract, save around 8 millions, but it would feel like min-maxing on this one, because I don't think you can get a safety on his level for less than like 6-7 millions, and you are not certain how he will fit in. He's also a leader. I like him. I think he's going to be on the roster. In terms of second safety, I think you would like to bring Quandre Diggs back, but it's uncertain what he would like to. In like two cases, one, he might want more money, because why wouldn't he, right? He is really good. Like, he has multiple Pro Bowls in his backpack, though like that you can argue that Pro Bowls are a bit susceptible in this, or he could chase rings. So, I don't think you want to really outpay for safety, especially in a year where you will try to fix the offense and you cannot provide him with ring expectations. So Quandre Diggs, I don't necessarily think he's going to be back. Luckily, you have Mikey Brown, who, like, if push comes to shove, he is your starting safety number 2. You can live with that. Cedric Gay, he was last year draft. He might be a choice that you go next to Jack Gibbons, but I would still like to bring some veteran presence into the room. Darrell Baker as your 5th corner, another guy you can bring back. And the same goes for Sebastian Joseph Day. Neither of these guys are under contract. That works for Baker, Brown, and Joseph. For Brown, you can really bring him back cheaply because he's restricted free agent. For the other 2 guys, you will have to pay some money for them, but they are worth as really good options. And especially like with Sebastian Joseph Day, I would be actually surprised if they did not bring him back, because he really meshed well with Simmons and Sweat. And I think for him, like, you get nice enough back, you play with top players, at least on your position. Why wouldn't you do that, right? So that's pretty much roster rundown for 2025 Titans. Let me know down in the comments, who do you think is not going to be on the roster, who did I cut but shouldn't have, who do you think they will definitely bring back and perhaps I did not mention. Before I say farewell to you guys for this video, let's talk about how they should approach free agency, how they should approach draft. Because I kind of avoided that a little bit, since this is like the main topic for the Titans, is what are you going to do with number 1 pick? And to me, there is a couple of things that are clear. You have to be on the phone. There is no way in hell, at least as of right now where I am in terms of evaluating these guys, that there is a player that you must pick with number 1 and you just cannot pass on. I don't think that's a statement that won't hold even before the draft. I don't think there is that guy. Obviously, Cameron Ward is expected number 1 pick that would fit here, because they do need better QB. But Cam Ward is not Caleb Williams. He's not Jaden Daniels. He's not Drake May. I think if you put him next last year in the draft, like, he might be anywhere from 4th to 7th picked QB in that draft. So that tells you about the level of quality I do expect from Cam Ward. And is that really a guy that you cannot pass on with number 1 pick? No, I think you definitely can. So that gives you a dilemma. What are you going to do? Because, okay, if you take him, you get 5 years of Cam Ward on cheap rookie deal rather than only 2 years left of Will Levis. And is Cam Ward right now better prospect than Will Levis? Absolutely. Like, if you give me a choice between Cam Ward 5 years on a rookie deal or Will Levis 2 years on a rookie deal, I will choose Cam Ward 5 times of 4. Every given day. But that's not how the question stands, because when you pick Cam Ward, you are losing the number 1 pick, because you obviously picked him with that. The best you can do for Will Levis right now, I think, is 3rd or 4th round. So that's the difference, you know. This guy, if we draft Cam Ward, we can get like 4th for Levis, because as a cheap backup for 2 years, I think some teams will take him, and perhaps they will want to watch if there is something from that exciting Will Levis from 2023 left. But that's what I get. With that, I get, you know, on average, like a good backup. What I can get with number 1 pick is definitely much better. Is there a player that I would pick as number 1 pick in this draft and not be a QB? Yes, there are a couple. I think there are 4 players that to me are, again, at this point of evaluation, are kind of unbustable in terms of, I really do expect these guys to be at worst good players, but they do have stardom potential. It's Abdul Carter. It's Jesus, guys. What? I'm sorry, I'm just talking too much. Travis Hunter. Sorry, it's been a long day. So, who are these guys? Abdul Carter, Ted McMillan, Travis Hunter, and Ashton Jeanty. Out of these 4 guys, and I'm really high on Ted McMillan by the way, out of these 4 guys, you cannot draft Ashton Jeanty number 1. You just can't. You know, I know that running backs are really much higher priority now in the league than they were 2 years ago, but you just cannot. You just cannot do it, even though he's really good. Really freaking good. So Ashton Jeanty is not the pick. And Abdul Carter, Ted McMillan, and Travis Hunter. So Travis Hunter, picking him is a bit of a problem because I strongly believe that his biggest path to stardom is as a corner. And that's one position here that you have talent, you have guys paid on, you really don't need to worry. If he was a full-time wide receiver starter, you can count him as a possible number 1 pick for the Titans. In this situation, if he wants to play corner, mainly, you just don't really, like, he would still be playing, but it would be pushing someone down the pecking order in like one of the better rooms than you have, and kind of not really filling the needs that you do have. Abdul Carter and Ted McMillan would fill huge needs. You know, Ted McMillan, I think, would immediately be number 2 receiver on this team. You know, to me, he's somewhere between like Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze in terms of quality, if you want to compare them to last year's draft. So immediately number 2, but with a huge potential to be number 1 as early as like late within the season. So that's Ted McMillan. And Abdul Carter, you know, like imagine Jeffrey Simmons, Devondre Sweat, Abdul Carter, and Arden Key next to them. This is actually low-key one of the potentially best D-lines in the league. So both of these guys would be very good fits. I think Abdul Carter's value and quality is better than Ted McMillan, though you need him slightly less because, you know, worst case scenario, still have Harold Landry and Arden Key. But the thing is, I'm kind of like, if I get Abdul Carter or Ted McMillan, or in some other scenarios, Travis Hunter, I'm okay with that. or I'm very glad with that, but I would like to get something else during the process. That's why I really think they should be on the phone, because both of these guys can or will be there. For example, if they would trade with New York Giants, who currently have number 3 pick. Hear me out. Giants have both GM and head coach on the hot seat. Like, they need to win. And unless they would sign a QB from free agency, which, truth to be told, I think there are 3 guys that they might consider, but neither of them makes sense, at least to me. So that's Aaron Rodgers, it's Russell Wilson, and that's Sam Darnold. So, Sam Darnold, why would you go to the Giants when you failed in Jets? He's not really a big market type of guy, at least in my opinion. And like, do you want to commit to him? Because I think he's going to want multiple year type of deal. I don't really think like Giants should do that. In terms of Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, like, okay, well, maybe they will save you for 1 year or 2 years. They will be expensive, and you are not going anywhere with them. Even with them, like, you will still be, at best average team in very tough division. So it doesn't necessarily make sense for them. It doesn't necessarily make sense for the Giants. They could obviously stay put. Either hope that Cam Ward or Shed Sanders are still there when number 3 picks arrives, or they will be like, okay, next year is Archie Manning, we will just do it this season and hope for the best next year. But I don't think that's necessarily the case for Brian Daboll and GM of the Giants, because it's their jobs that are on the line. So I will not be surprised if they will pick up the phone and will be like, I thought that Titans, what do you want for the number 1 pick? And I simulated that in mock draft. And in this scenario, Giants were okay to part ways with their number 3 pick, with their next year first round, and this year second. I think this is too hefty of a price. I feel like it can get done with 3rd round rather than 2nd this year. And I think that's actually kind of a win-win for both teams. For Giants, you get a guy that will enter much better situation than Titans have, because offensive line of the Giants is better, not like too better, but it's better than what the Titans have, and you have number 1 receiver in Mike Neighbors, who is insane. So that's better situation. So you want to put and insert quality rookie QB there rather than what Titans have, because there is really not much to work with. And if you spend that pick, it lowers the chance that the rest of the team is better, right? So to me, that makes sense for the Giants, also from the perspective that they really hit on draft in 2024. So parting away with 2 high-priced picks this year and next year is painful, but it's not the end of the world for them, because they have several interesting guys from this year's draft. And why does this make sense for the Titans? Well, like I said, I don't think that the situation that Cam Ward would enter would be really good. I also don't think he is necessarily a prospect you cannot miss on, as I said, and I think there will be better QBs next year. So if I make this move as a Titan, I don't end up my chances with Levis, which is semi-valuable. I'm not saying it's super, but I do get on average top 10 pick next year. I do have number 3 from this year, and I also have 3rd or 2nd this year. So I should get really good players to help my future QB in years to come to have a much better situation to enter. And what I would do with the 3rd pick. So let's imagine this is the situation. Giants, there is only one player I hope that they would draft up for. I really don't see them going and draft up for anyone but QB, and I don't see them saying, okay, I think Shedder Sanders is better than Cam Ward. He might be right now, but the potential is just much better for Cam Ward, in my opinion. So in this scenario, Giants will pick Cam Ward. I think Browns have like two options. Some say they would go for a QB and pick Shedder Sanders. I think that would be stupid. I think you trade Myles Garrett and you pick Abdul Carter here, which is not what happened in this simulation. But if I were Browns and I'm sitting with number 2 and Abdul Carter is on the board, especially after I most likely am going to trade Myles Garrett, Abdul Carter is just an easy pick for me. So that would leave us with number 3. Here in the simulations, this one is crazy. Like in this scenario, the Titans were able to get Abdul Carter and Josh Simmons, so solving their D-line for years to come, and potentially even some of their offensive line woes, and get 2 extra first round picks from Giants and Raiders for next year, 2 extra second from Raiders and Falcons, and only give up their first this year, obviously, their second this year, and their fourth this year. I mean, this would be one hell of a draft. That's why they gave me A+. I don't think the draft gods would be that much favorable. So let's go back to more realistic scenario. Here I'm sitting here with number 3 pick. I would still be on the phone, but if no one gives me an offer that I like, which to me is either I really want a hefty compensation and go down around number 9, number 10, where I feel good about drafting tackles. In this draft, I don't think they are necessarily like draftable within top 5 picks. I think 6th and down, they don't feel like reaches, but anywhere over that, they really feel like reaching for a tackle, and they need a tackle, right one. And so either I want to drop down to around 10, 11, 12, where I think I can get one of the great tackle prospects in this draft, or I want to trade with someone like Raiders, because again, let's imagine. So Giants go Cam Ward, Browns take Abdul Carter, and if Raiders are going up, they are probably going for QB, right? They should be. They should be going for Shedder Sanders. So let's say they go for Shedder Sanders, then 4th pick has Patriots, they probably take Ted McMillan, and then you have still Travis Hunter, Mason Graham, and Will Johnson on the as a possibility for Jaguars. Neither of these guys are necessarily what you absolutely would love to pick, right? As a Titans, because 2 of them are corner, and one is defensive lineman, but you kind of have one of the best those in the league. So what can happen there is, I would say in the scenario, either Will Johnson, like any one of these 3, Jacksonville will pick. You are not going to take Will Johnson. That's the only guy that you are not going to pick. But if you can get Mason Graham or Travis Hunter, it's like, well, you are putting strength over strength, but you are doing that with a lot of additional ammo that you've got through this trade. Or now, if you want to go and draft Will Campbell as a number 6 pick, while you get 2 first rounders next year from Raiders and Giants, and perhaps third next year for this year, why the hell not? That would feel like a win in my book. So I definitely would be on the phone. If the compensations are not up par, I'm definitely not opposed to pick Cam Ward. I would not be shocked if they picked Ted McMillan or Abdul Carter, though in that scenario I would strongly go for Abdul Carter. I think he's just insane. Definitely worth the number 1 pick. But I would be on the phone, man. I would really try to trade down, especially with teams like Raiders and Giants, who I feel like if they are giving me their first year next year, it's most likely a top 10 pick. So I'm really good with that. There is a lot of holes on this team. There is not necessarily a window for some players. Like, we have a bunch of great players that just finishing rookie contracts. You don't. You have some, not necessarily much. You need ammo. I don't think you should optimize yourself for 2025. I think it's all about either giving Will Levis his final opportunity or preparing the situation for future QB. That would be my plans for the Titans. Thank you very much if you listened up to here. I will be very thankful if you leave a like, if you leave a comment. It would help tremendously. It takes a lot of time to prepare this for you guys, so show me please the appreciation for that. Thank you very much and see you with the next one. I hope we hit the road running. Bye.